My neighbor has been dead for 2 weeks, but every night at exactly 11:47 p.m., someone turns on the lights in his apartment. And last night, I saw who it was. My name is Mordechai Vaughan, and I need to tell you what's been happening in apartment 4C of the Berkshire Arms in downtown Portland, Oregon. Because what I discovered goes way beyond one dead neighbor. It goes way beyond anything I could have imagined. I moved into the Berkshire Arms 6 months ago after my job transferred me from Boston. It's one of those old apartment buildings from the 1920s that developers haven't gotten around to converting into overpriced condos yet. High ceilings, crown molding, radiators that clang at 3 a.m., walls thin enough to hear your neighbor's entire life. My apartment is 4B, 4th floor, middle unit. To my left is 4A, a retired school teacher named Noemi Webster, who bakes cookies that make the entire hallway smell like cinnamon. To my right is 4C. The guy in 4C was Colter Barnett, mid-30s, worked from home, doing something with computers. The kind of neighbor you see maybe twice a month in passing, polite nods in the hallway, occasional, "How's it going?" by the mailboxes, nothing more. He was quiet, almost eerily quiet. I'd hear the occasional keyboard clicking through the wall, sometimes soft classical music, always Chopin, always the nocturnes, but mostly silence. 2 weeks ago, on a Tuesday morning, I left for work at 7:30 a.m. and nearly tripped over him. Colter was lying in the hallway, right outside his door, on his back, eyes open, not moving. I knew immediately he was dead. There's something about a body, I can't explain it, but you just know. The absolute stillness, the way gravity affects it differently. I called 911. Paramedics came within 8 minutes. They pronounced him dead at the scene. Heart attack, they said. Happens sometimes to young people. Undiagnosed heart conditions, genetic defects, sudden cardiac arrest. Police took statements from everyone on the floor. Did we hear anything unusual? No. Did we know if he had any family? No. Had we noticed any strange behavior? No. They removed his body, contacted some distant cousin in Seattle who agreed to handle the arrangements. The landlord put a notice on the door about clearing out the apartment within 30 days. And that should have been the end of it. Except 3 nights later, at 11:47 p.m., I woke up to light bleeding through the wall between our apartments. The light coming from 4C. I got out of bed and pressed my ear against the wall. Heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps. Someone was walking around in there. I figured it was the cousin. Maybe he'd come to start clearing things out. Weird time to do it, but grief makes people act strange. I went back to bed. The next night, 11:47 p.m. Lights on again. Footsteps. The night after that, same thing. 11:47 p.m. exactly, like clockwork. After the 5th night, I started getting uncomfortable. Who clears out an apartment for an hour every night at the exact same time? And why hadn't I seen anyone coming or going? I decided to stay up and watch. Night 6. I positioned myself by my door with the lights off. Peephole view of the hallway. Waited. 11:47 p.m. arrived. Right on schedule, I heard the door to 4C unlock. Heard it open. Heard it close. But I never saw anyone enter the hallway. I waited another 10 minutes. Opened my door slowly. Looked down the hallway both ways. Empty. But light was shining from under Colter's door. And I could hear those footsteps again. The building has a back stairwell. Maybe someone was using that. Maybe they had a key and were entering through 4C's back door that opened to the fire escape. That had to be it. Night 7, I decided to knock. At 11:52 p.m., I walked to Colter's door. The police notice was still taped there, yellowing at the edges. Light definitely coming from inside. Footsteps definitely moving around. I knocked 3 times, firm but not aggressive. The footsteps stopped, immediately, like someone hit pause on a recording. Complete silence. I knocked again. "Hello? I'm from next door. Just checking who's here." Nothing. No response. No movement. Then the light went off. Just like that. Sudden darkness under the door. Like someone flipped a switch the instant they heard my voice. I pressed my ear against the door. Listened for a full minute. Nothing. Whoever was in there was either completely still or gone. I went back to my apartment, locked my door, triple-checked it, lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself there was a reasonable explanation. Night 8, 11:47 p.m. Lights on again. Footsteps again. But this time, I heard something else. Furniture moving. The scrape of something heavy being dragged across the floor. Then silence. Then more footsteps. Then, and this is what made my blood go cold. I heard Colter's voice. No, not possible. Colter was dead. I saw him lying in the hallway. Saw the paramedics load him onto a stretcher and zip him into a body bag. But I heard his voice, muffled through the wall. Just a few words I couldn't make out. But the tone, the cadence, that was Colter. The next morning, I did something I'm not proud of. I called in sick to work. Not because I was actually sick, because I needed to understand what the hell was happening in the apartment next to mine. First, I Googled Colter Barnett, found his LinkedIn profile, software developer, freelance, worked with various tech companies, found a barely used Twitter account, found an obituary in the Portland Tribune. Colter James Barnett, 34, of Portland, Oregon, passed away unexpectedly on Tuesday, March 12th. He is survived by his cousin, Harlow George of Seattle. A private service will be held. In lieu of flowers, donations may be made to the American Heart Association. March 12th. That was the day I found him. Everything checked out. He was definitely dead. I went down to the building manager's office. Rocco Torres, a gruff man in his 60s, who'd been managing the Berkshire Arms for 20 years. He was eating a sandwich and watching YouTube videos on his phone when I knocked. Yeah? What's up, 4B? Hey, Rocco. Quick question. Has Colter's cousin been coming by to clear out 4C? He set down his sandwich and pulled up something on his computer. No. She called last week, said she'd be out here next month. Needed time to arrange things. Why? Just heard some noise coming from there at night. Wanted to make sure someone was supposed to be in there. Rocco looked up sharply. What kind of noise? Footsteps, lights on. Around midnight, every night for the past week. Rocco stood up immediately, grabbed a large ring of keys from his desk. Show me. We went up to the 4th floor together. It was 10:30 a.m., bright daylight streaming through the hallway windows. Everything looked completely normal. Rocco knocked on 4C's door. Building management. Anyone in there? Silence. He pulled out his master key. If someone's been breaking in, we need to secure the unit. The lock turned with a heavy click. The door swung open. Colter's apartment was exactly as I'd imagined it. Minimalist, clean lines, an expensive-looking desk with 3 monitors, bookshelves filled with programming manuals and science fiction novels, a leather couch, a kitchen that looked barely used. Everything neat, everything in its place. No signs of disturbance. Rocco walked through slowly, checking windows, checking locks. Everything looked secure. Windows locked from inside. Back door to the fire escape is deadbolted. No signs of forced entry. But I heard someone in here, multiple nights. I'm not imagining it. Rocco scratched his chin. Sound travels weird in old buildings. Could be hearing 4A or someone upstairs. Could be the radiators. They make all kinds of noise. I know the difference between radiator noise and footsteps. Tell you what, I'll change the locks today. That way, even if someone had Colter's old key, they won't be able to get in. If you hear anything after that, call me immediately, and we'll call the cops. Deal? Deal. As we were leaving, I noticed something. On Colter's desk, partially hidden under a stack of papers, was a notebook, the kind with a black leather cover and elastic band. I'd seen Colter carrying it sometimes. He'd write in it at the coffee shop in the lobby, always hunched over it like he was protecting the contents. While Rocco was checking the bathroom, I did something stupid. I grabbed the notebook and shoved it into my jacket. Back in my apartment, I opened it. The first few pages were mundane. Work notes, code snippets, meeting reminders, grocery lists. But starting around page 40, things got strange. Entry dated January 15th. Heard it again last night. 11:47 p.m. Always 11:47 p.m. The scratching sound inside the walls. I put my ear against the plaster, and it stopped immediately, like whatever was making it knew I was listening. January 22nd. The scratching has moved. Started behind the bedroom wall. Now it's behind the kitchen wall. Then the bathroom. It's circling the apartment. Rocco says it's rats, but rats don't move with this kind of intention. February 3rd. I've been researching the building history. Berkshire Arms was built in 1924. Original architect was a man named Demetrius Hess. He died in the building during construction, fell down the elevator shaft. They finished building anyway. Maybe that's relevant, maybe not. February 18th. Last night I saw something. Woke up at 3 a.m. and there was a figure standing in my bedroom doorway. Tall, thin, perfectly still. I blinked and it was gone. I need to get out of this apartment. March 11th, the day before he died. I know what's happening now. I know what it wants. I found the room, the one that shouldn't exist. Tomorrow I'm going to open it. Tomorrow I'm going to end this. The room that shouldn't exist. What did that mean? I grabbed the building blueprints. They were public record, available online from the city archives. Downloaded them, opened them, found the 4th floor layout. Apartments 4A, 4B, and 4C were clearly marked. Standard layouts. Living room, bedroom, kitchen, bathroom. But there was something off about the measurements. I measured my apartment with a tape measure. Wall to wall, 32 feet. According to the blueprints, 32 feet. Perfect match. I estimated Colter's apartment based on what I'd seen that morning, also 32 feet. But according to the blueprints, the distance from the exterior wall of 4A to the exterior wall of 4C was 98 feet. 32 plus 32 plus 32 equals 96 feet. There were 2 feet unaccounted for. 2 feet of space that existed in the building, but not in any of the apartments. The room that shouldn't exist. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my living room with the lights off, waiting for 11:47 p.m. 11:46 p.m. Nothing. 11:47 p.m. Right on schedule, the light came on in 4C. The footsteps started. I grabbed my phone, set it to record video, and went into the hallway. The hallway was empty, light bleeding from under Colter's door. Footsteps clearly audible now that I was out of my apartment. I tried the doorknob. Locked. Rocco had changed it that afternoon. I pressed my ear against the door. The footsteps were moving in a pattern. Entrance to living room to bedroom, bedroom to kitchen, kitchen to bathroom, bathroom back to entrance, circling, just like Colter had described the scratching sounds. Then the pattern changed. The footsteps stopped at what would be the wall between Colter's living room and his bedroom, right where that 2-foot gap should be. I heard scraping, like a door opening, old hinges that hadn't been oiled in decades. Then a new sound, footsteps descending, downstairs. But 4C didn't have stairs. It was a single-floor apartment. I held my phone up to the door, recording audio. Got about 30 seconds of the descending footsteps, then silence. I waited 15 minutes. The light stayed on, but no more sounds. I went back to my apartment, listened to the recording, enhanced the audio. You could clearly hear it, footsteps going down what sounded like wooden stairs. I spent the rest of the night researching, found old newspaper articles about the Berkshire Arms, found the original construction plans from 1924, and I found something interesting. An article from the Portland Daily Herald, dated November 3rd, 1924. Construction continues on the Berkshire Arms, despite tragic accident. Architect Demetrius Hess fell to his death last week during an inspection of the elevator shaft. Workers report strange occurrences since the accident. Tools going missing, unexplained sounds at night, and the discovery of a sealed room on the 4th floor that does not appear in the original plans. Mr. Hess's partner, Kalia Travis, has assumed control of the project. A sealed room on the 4th floor, a room not in the plans, and tools going missing, and unexplained sounds, the same things Colter had written about. I searched for more information about Kalia Travis, found an obituary from 1967. She'd lived in the Berkshire Arms her entire life after Hess died. Apartment 4C, specifically, Colter's apartment. The pieces were starting to fit together. Demetrius Hess dies during construction. A mysterious sealed room appears. His partner moves into that specific apartment and lives there for 40 years. Strange phenomena continue for a century. I needed to get back inside 4C. I needed to find that hidden room. The next morning, I told Rocco there was a leak coming from 4C into my apartment. He grumbled, but agreed to let me in to show him. Of course, there was no leak. But once we were inside, I'd have a chance to look around. Rocco unlocked the door. We entered. Bright daylight again. Everything looking perfectly normal. The leak was coming from that wall, I said, pointing to the wall between the living room and bedroom, right where I'd heard the door sound the night before. Rocco walked over, pressed his hand against the wall, knocked on it. Sounds solid. No water damage I can see. Can you check behind it? Maybe the pipes are inside the wall. He looked at me. Mordechai, is this really about a leak? I decided to be honest. Well, partially honest. I found Colter's notebook. He wrote about strange things happening in this apartment. He mentioned finding a hidden room. I think there's something behind this wall. Rocco sighed heavily. Jesus Christ, not this again. Again? Every few years, someone moves into 4C and becomes convinced there's something weird about it. Hidden rooms, strange noises, ghost sightings. Kalia Travis was obsessed with it. The guy before Colter lasted 3 months before he broke his lease. Colter seemed fine with it until recently. But what if there really is something? What if... I've lived in this building for 40 years, managed it for 20. I know every inch of it. There's no hidden room. It's an old building. Old buildings make noise. That's all. Then why don't the measurements match the blueprints? That made him stop. What? I measured. There's 2 feet of space unaccounted for between these apartments. 2 feet that exists in the building structure, but not in any unit. Rocco walked over to the wall again, knocked on it in several places, moved a bookshelf aside, knocked again. One section sounded different, hollow. All right, I'll get my tools, we'll take a look. But when we find nothing but empty wall cavity, you're paying for the repair. Rocco returned 20 minutes later with a cordless drill, a pry bar, and a flashlight. Let's get this over with. We moved the bookshelf completely away from the wall. In the corner, barely visible, was a seam in the wallpaper, like someone had very carefully papered over a door. Huh, that's weird. Rocco peeled back the wallpaper carefully. Underneath was old wood paneling, and yes, there was a door. A narrow door, maybe 2 feet wide, painted the same color as the wall to blend in. It had no handle, just a keyhole. I've never seen this before. 40 years, and I never knew this was here. Can you open it? Not without the key. It's an old lock, probably original to the building. I can drill it out, but that'll destroy the mechanism. Do it. The drill whined as Rocco worked on the lock. It took about 5 minutes. The old mechanism finally gave way with a metallic snap. All right, here we go. He pushed the door. It swung inward with a long, low creak, the same sound I'd heard through the wall. Beyond was darkness. Rocco shined his flashlight inside. The beam revealed a narrow passageway, maybe 2 feet wide, running parallel to the apartment wall, the space between the apartments that shouldn't exist. The walls were exposed brick and old plaster, no insulation, dust thick on the floor, and at the far end, about 15 feet away, wooden stairs leading down into more darkness. What the hell is this? The article said there was a sealed room. This must be it, or the entrance to it. We should call someone, building inspector, maybe the fire department. Or we could just look. Rocco shined the light around again. 5 minutes. We look, we document it, then we call professionals. Agreed? Agreed. We stepped into the passage, had to turn sideways to fit. The air was stale and cold, like breathing in a tomb. The dust on the floor wasn't evenly distributed. There were footprints, recent footprints, leading to the stairs and back. Someone's been in here. Colter, or whoever's been coming here at night. We reached the stairs, old wood, narrow, steep, leading down into what should be the third-floor apartments below. But the third floor didn't have high enough ceilings for a whole additional level. This doesn't make sense. Where do these go? Only one way to find out. Rocco went first, flashlight leading the way. I followed, using my phone light. The stairs creaked with each step. 16 steps down. I counted them. At the bottom was another door. This one had no lock, just a simple latch. Rocco's hand hovered over it. Last chance to call this off. Open it. He lifted the latch, pushed the door open. The room beyond was roughly circular, maybe 12 feet in diameter. The walls were bare brick, no windows. The ceiling was arched, like we were standing inside a dome. And in the center of the room was a table. Not a normal table, more like a stone altar, waist high, dark gray stone that looked ancient. On the table were papers, dozens of them, scattered across the surface like someone had been studying them. We approached slowly. Rocco shined his light on the papers. They were architectural drawings, but not normal ones. These showed the Berkshire Arms with additional rooms, additional passages, entire sections that didn't exist in the real building. These are Hess's original plans, before the revisions. One drawing showed this exact room. Underneath, in neat handwriting, was a note. The anchor point, the space between, the door that must never be opened. Rocco picked up another paper. This one was a letter, dated October 1924. Dear Kalia, if you're reading this, I've made a terrible mistake. The room was meant to be sealed permanently. It was meant to contain what I found during the excavation, the thing beneath the foundation. But I was curious. I opened the lower door. I saw what was down there, and now it knows I'm here. I'm sealing the room as planned, but I fear it's too late for me. If I don't survive, you must promise me something. Never open this room. Never go down the second stairs. And if anyone ever finds this place, burn it. Burn the whole building if you must. Some doors were meant to stay closed. D. Hess. The lower door. The second stairs. Hess had written about going deeper. Rocco swept his flashlight around the room. On the far wall, partially hidden behind where we'd entered, was another opening, another set of stairs, leading further down. Rocco. No. Absolutely not. We're leaving. Now. We seal this room back up and we call. That's when we heard it. From the stairs leading further down. A sound like breathing. Deep. Slow. Rhythmic. And getting closer. Move. Now. We backed toward the door we came through, but the breathing sound was getting louder and closer. Whatever was down there was coming up. Go, go, go! We ran for the stairs, Rocco first, then me. Behind us, I heard something emerge into the circular room. Heavy footsteps, slow, deliberate, up the 16 steps, through the narrow passage, back into Colter's apartment. Rocco slammed the hidden door shut, and we shoved the bookshelf back in front of it. We stood there, breathing hard, listening. From behind the wall, we heard footsteps ascending the stairs, reaching the top, stopping at the door, then silence. What the hell was that? I don't know. We need to leave. We need to call someone. Police, fire department, someone. Yeah, okay. We left the apartment. Rocco locked it. We stood in the hallway for a moment, both of us trying to process what we'd just experienced. I'm going to call the police. Tell them we found unauthorized construction, potential structural issues. They'll send someone. And what do we tell them about what we heard? Rocco didn't answer that. I went back to my apartment, triple-locked the door, sat on my couch, trying to slow my heartbeat. Something was living in the space beneath the building. Something Demetrius Hess had found during construction. Something he'd tried to seal away. Something that had killed him anyway. And Colter had found it too. But if Colter found it and died, if the thing down there killed him, then who had been in 4C every night at 11:47 p.m.? I looked at my phone. 11:39 p.m. 8 minutes until the lights would turn on. I grabbed my phone, set it to record, and waited. 11:47 p.m. The light came on in 4C. The footsteps started. But this time, I noticed something different. The footsteps weren't random. They were following the exact same pattern every night. Same path, same timing, same sequence. Like a recording, like a loop. That's when it hit me. These weren't someone walking around. These were echoes. Remnants of Colter's last night alive, playing on repeat. March 11th, the night before Colter died. His notebook said he was going to open it and end this. He must have found the hidden room, descended the stairs, confronted whatever was down there. And at 11:47 p.m., he'd started his final investigation. I pressed my ear against the wall, listened to the footsteps make their circuit. Entrance, living room, bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, back to living room. Then the sound of the hidden door opening. Footsteps in the passage, descending the stairs. Then, nothing. That's where the loop ended, because that's where Colter died. He went down those stairs and never came back up. But his body was found in the hallway, not in the hidden room, not at the bottom of the stairs, in the hallway outside his apartment. How did it get there? There was a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole. 2 police officers. Rocco had called them. I opened the door. Mordechai Vaughan? I'm Officer Reginald Orr. This is Officer Alea McCormick. Your building manager called about a structural discovery? Yes. Come in. I'll tell you everything. I explained about the hidden passage, the circular room, the papers we found, Demetrius Hess's letter. I didn't mention the breathing sound or the footsteps. I knew how that would sound. And you're saying this space has been sealed since 1924? That's what the letter said. And the dust on the floor, it looked decades old, except for recent footprints. Footprints? How recent? Within the last few weeks, I think Colter Barnett, the man who died in 4C, found the room before he died. The officers looked at each other, had a brief, whispered conversation. Then Officer Orr spoke.
We'll need to investigate the space, and we'll need to review Mr. Barnett's autopsy report.
If there's any possibility his death wasn't natural, this becomes a different kind of investigation. The next morning, Officer Orr called me, asked me to come down to the station, said they'd reviewed Colter's autopsy and had questions. I sat in a small interview room with Officers Orr and McCormick. A manila folder sat on the table between us. Mr. Vaughan, did you notice anything unusual about Mr. Barnett's body when you found him? He was lying on his back, eyes open. He looked peaceful, I guess, like he'd just laid down and died. Officer Orr opened the folder, pulled out a photograph, slid it across the table. It was a photo of Colter's body from the autopsy. The initial cause of death was listed as cardiac arrest, but the ME noted something unusual, Mr. Barnett's hands. I looked closer at the photo. Colter's hands were clenched into fists. The knuckles were scraped and bloody. I don't remember seeing that. His hands were tucked under his body when you found him. The paramedics noted the injuries when they moved him. There was also wood and plaster under his fingernails. He was scratching at something, or trying to claw his way through something. The question is what? Officer McCormick pulled out another photo. This one showed Colter's back. There were marks on his shirt, smudges of dust and dirt, and something else. These marks here. The ME initially thought they were from being dragged, but the pattern is wrong. It's more like he was pulled, vertically, up through something, up through the hidden passage. That's our theory. We think Mr. Barnett went down into that sealed room, and something happened. He died down there, possibly from fear-induced cardiac arrest, possibly from something else. And then someone, or something, brought his body back up and left it in the hallway. Who, or what? We don't know. We sent a team into the hidden space yesterday. They documented everything, the passage, the circular room, the papers. But they didn't find anyone, and they didn't go down the second staircase. Why not? Officer Orr shifted in his seat. Because when they shined their flashlights down there, they saw something at the bottom, and whatever it was, it moved away from the light, fast. My blood went cold. What did they see? They described it as humanoid, tall, but the proportions were wrong. Arms too long, head too large, moving in a way that didn't look right. And they just left? They didn't go down? They weren't equipped for that kind of investigation. We've called in a specialist team. They're coming tomorrow. Mr. Vaughan, we need you to answer something honestly. Have you been back into that space since you and Mr. Torres discovered it? No, I haven't. And the sounds you've been hearing every night at 11:47 p.m., have they continued? Yes, every night. But I think I understand what they are now. They're not someone walking around. They're echoes, a recording of Colter's last night. Explain that. Buildings absorb events, traumatic events especially. What I've been hearing is Colter's routine from March 11th, playing on loop. He went into that room at 11:47 p.m. and never came back. The building remembers. That's not exactly scientific. Neither is what's living in my building. We're going to need you to stay away from 4C and that hidden space until our investigation is complete, for your own safety. Understood. I left the police station with more questions than answers, but one thing was clear. Whatever was in that space beneath the building, it had been there for a century, and it wasn't leaving. That night, the night before the specialist team was supposed to investigate, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Colter, about his notebook, about his last entry. Tomorrow I'm going to end this. He'd tried to stop it, and it had killed him. 11:47 p.m. arrived. Like clockwork, the lights came on in 4C. The footsteps started their loop, but tonight, something was different. The footsteps didn't follow the usual pattern. Instead of circling the apartment, they went straight to the hidden door. I heard it open. Heard footsteps descending the stairs. Then I heard new sounds. Sounds I'd never heard before. Voices. Multiple voices. One was Colter. I recognized it from the night I'd heard him through the wall. The other was deeper, rougher, not quite human. I grabbed my phone, set it to record, and before I could talk myself out of it, I went into the hallway. The door to 4C was closed, but not locked. The police had been in and out. I pushed it open. The apartment was dark except for light coming from the hidden passage. The bookshelf had been moved aside. I entered the narrow passage, my phone's flashlight cutting through the darkness. The voices were clearer now, coming from the circular room below. I descended the 16 steps, slowly, quietly. At the bottom, I peered into the circular room. What I saw made me stop breathing. 2 figures in the room. One was Colter, or rather, the ghost of Colter, translucent, flickering like an old film. He was standing by the stone table, looking at the papers. The other figure was standing near the entrance to the second staircase. It was roughly human-shaped, but the officers had been right. The proportions were wrong. It stood maybe 7 feet tall, arms that reached past its knees, fingers that ended in points. Its head was large and angular, with features I couldn't quite make out in the shadows. They were talking, or rather, Colter's ghost was talking to it. I strained to hear the words. I know what you are. I know what Hess found when he dug the foundation. You were already here.
You've always been here.
Yes, and you've been trapped. Hess sealed you in when he built the room. That's why you make people find it. You need someone to open the door, to let you out. Yes, I won't do it. I won't open that door. The creature moved, faster than anything that size should move. It crossed the room in an instant and grabbed Colter's ghost by the throat. You will, or I will make you. Colter's ghost struggled, clawed at the creature's arm. Then his form started to flicker more rapidly. His body went rigid. He was having a heart attack. Even as a ghost, he was reliving his death. The creature released him. Colter's ghost collapsed. The creature bent down, grabbed the body and dragged it toward the stairs leading up to the apartment. That's what had happened. Colter had come down, confronted the creature, refused to help it escape. The creature had killed him through sheer terror, then dragged his body up and left it in the hallway. And now, every night at 11:47 p.m., the scene replayed. A recording burned into the building itself. Colter's final moments, repeating endlessly. The creature finished dragging the ghost up the stairs. Then it turned and looked directly at me. I froze, completely still. My phone flashlight pointed directly at it. You see, I couldn't speak, couldn't move. It started walking toward me, those 2 long arms swinging, head tilted at an unnatural angle. You see? You understand. Good, then you will help me. No. It stopped 3 feet away from me. This close I could see its face clearly, or what should have been a face, smooth gray stone. No eyes, no nose, just a crack where a mouth should be. I have been here for millennia, long before your city, long before your kind walked this land. The one called Hess found my resting place. He disturbed me, built his cage around me. But cages can be opened, doors can be unlocked. You will help me, or you will join him in the loop. I understood then. This was the choice Colter had faced. Help it escape and unleash whatever it was on the world, or refuse and die, becoming another ghost trapped in the building's memory. What's behind the door? Everything that was before, everything that will be again. The door was sealed to keep me from them, not to keep them from you. There are more of you. Many more, sleeping beneath your cities, waiting to be awakened. I am the first, but I will not be the last. I backed toward the stairs. I won't help you. Then you will stay. I turned and ran up the stairs. Behind me, I heard the creature following, but not quickly. It didn't need to rush. It had all the time in the world. Through the narrow passage, into Colter's apartment, I grabbed the bookshelf and shoved it back in front of the hidden door. It wouldn't hold. I knew that, but it might buy me time. I called Officer Orr. He answered on the second ring. It's Mordechai Vaughan. You need to send everyone to the Berkshire Arms. Now. The specialist team needs to get here tonight. Not tomorrow. Tonight. What's happened? I saw it. The thing in the building. It's trying to get out. And if it does, there are more of them, beneath the city, all over. We need to seal that room, permanently. Behind me, I heard the bookshelf scrape across the floor, slowly. Something was pushing it aside from the other side. It's coming through. Send everyone. Now. Stay on the line. Get out of the building if you can. I ran for the apartment door, got into the hallway. Behind me, I heard the bookshelf crash to the floor. I ran to the stairs, started down, got to the third-floor landing and looked back up. The creature was standing in Colter's doorway, head turning slowly, tracking my movement. You cannot run from what has always been here. I kept running. Second floor, first floor, into the lobby. Rocco was there, working late in his office. He saw my face and stood up immediately. What's wrong? Get out. Everyone needs to get out, now. Sirens outside. 3 patrol cars screeched to a stop. Officers poured out. Officer Orr led them, along with Officer McCormick and 4 others I didn't recognize. Where is it? 4th floor, apartment 4C. It's trying to get out. Evacuate the building. Everyone out, now. Officers went door to door, getting residents out. Noemi from 4A came down confused and frightened. Others from different floors, all asking what was happening. We all gathered across the street, watching, waiting. 20 minutes later, a black van arrived. 4 people got out wearing what looked like hazmat suits, but weren't quite. They conferred with Officer Orr, then entered the building carrying equipment I didn't recognize. What are they going to do? Seal it, permanently. Fill the space with concrete. Make sure nothing can get out. Will that work? I don't know. Hess tried to seal it in 1924. Clearly that didn't work. But we have better materials now, stronger concrete. We'll do everything we can. We waited for 3 hours. Cement trucks arrived. More equipment was brought in. The specialists went in and out multiple times. Finally, at 3:47 a.m., they emerged for the last time. The leader of the team pulled off her helmet, talked quietly with Officer Orr. He nodded, came over to us. The space has been sealed. We filled the passage, the circular room, and the upper stairs with reinforced concrete. We couldn't go down the second staircase. Whatever's down there retreated when we tried. But we've sealed the entrance. Nothing can get through. Someone in the crowd, a man from the 2nd floor, spoke up. Can we go back in? Yes, the building is safe, but 4C is permanently closed. No one goes in there. Understood? It's been 3 months since that night. Life in the Berkshire Arms has mostly returned to normal. 4C remains sealed. The city condemned it for structural issues. Nobody asks too many questions. Rocco offered reduced rent to everyone on the 4th floor as compensation for the disturbance. The nightly sounds stopped. 11:47 p.m. comes and goes now, with only silence from next door. No lights, no footsteps, no echoes. Colter's ghost, it seems, has finally been released. Or perhaps trapped in concrete forever. I'm not sure which is worse. I did some research after everything settled down. Found out there are dozens of buildings in Portland built in the same era, all with similar stories. Sealed rooms, strange sounds, unexplained deaths. The creature was right. There are more of them, beneath the cities, under the foundations, sleeping, waiting. The question that keeps me up at night isn't whether they exist. I know they do. The question is, how long will the seals hold? I'm moving out next month. Found a nice apartment in a new building. Built in 2019. No history, no sealed rooms, no ancient things sleeping beneath the foundation. Or at least, none that I know of. Before I go, though, I wanted to tell this story. I needed someone else to know. Because the specialist team told Officer Orr something they didn't announce to the residents. They detected movement below the concrete, down the 2nd staircase, down where Hess's door supposedly leads. The thing is still down there, and it's not alone. If you live in an old building, really old, built before 1950, do me a favor. Check the blueprints. Measure the walls. Make sure all the space is accounted for. Because if you find a room that shouldn't exist, don't open it. Don't investigate. Don't try to understand. Some doors were meant to stay closed. Oh, and one more thing. Last night I heard scratching in my walls, always at 11:47 p.m. I'm trying to convince myself it's just rats.